Daniel's fall didn't come loudly. It came quietly, in sealed envelopes, polite emails, and meetings he was no longer invited to. The audit report landed on the board's table 3 days after the press conference. Thick, precise, merciless. Every decision Daniel had rushed, every favor he had granted, every corner he had cut while believing himself untouchable. Now, each line told a story he could no longer rewrite. He sat alone in his office when the call came. Mr. Okoye, the chairman, said calmly, "Your position has been suspended, pending final review." Daniel closed his eyes. "For how long?" he asked. "That depends," the chairman replied. "On what else we uncover?" The line went dead. Daniel stared at the wall. The office that once felt like a throne now felt like a waiting room before judgment. Across the building, Amina reviewed documents with quiet focus. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. Each page felt heavy in her hands, not because of power, but because of history. Mrs. Adeyemi watched her closely. "You can end this today," she said gently. "One signature." Amina paused. "And if I do, he's finished." Amina looked down at the paper. Finished. She remembered the nights she slept hungry, the way Daniel had looked past her, as if she were already erased. The sound of scissors cutting her hair, her dignity away. She folded the paper slowly. "Not yet." Mrs. Adeyemi studied her. "Mercy." "No," Amina replied softly. "Truth." Daniel received another summons that afternoon, this time to a private board hearing. No lawyers. No allies. When he entered the room, Amina was already there, not at the head of the table, standing. Daniel stopped short. "You're enjoying this?" Amina met his eyes. "I'm enduring it," he scoffed weakly. "You've won." "No," she said. "Winning would feel different." The board members filed in, faces unreadable. The chairman spoke first. "Mr. Okoye, the audit has revealed multiple violations." Daniel swallowed. However, the chairman continued. "There is one matter we have yet to resolve." He turned to Amina, "The ownership clause." Daniel's head snapped up. "What clause?" Amina exhaled slowly. "The one you never read." She slid a document across the table. Daniel picked it up, hands shaking as his eyes scanned the text. His breath caught. It was clear, unmistakable. Everything he thought he was building had always belonged to her. "You signed it," Amina said quietly. "The night you said you trusted me." Daniel's knees weakened. He sank back into his chair. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I know," Amina replied. The board fell silent. The chairman cleared his throat. "Ms. Bello, the final decision is yours." All eyes turned to her. Amina looked at Daniel not as a wife, not as a victim, but as a woman who had survived him. "I won't destroy him," she said. Daniel looked up sharply. "I will release him," Amina continued. "From this company, with nothing taken that wasn't already his." Murmurs rippled across the table. Daniel's voice cracked. "Why?" Amina held his gaze. "Because the punishment you fear would end too quickly." She stood. "Living with what you lost will last longer." Daniel left the building carrying a cardboard box. No escort. No audience, just silence. The city hadn't changed, but his place in it had. Sandra waited in the apartment, pacing. "What happened?" Daniel set the box down slowly. "It's over." Her eyes widened. "Over. They let me go." Sandra's face hardened. "Then we move. Start again." Daniel looked at her, then really looked. "No," he said quietly. She laughed sharply. "Don't be dramatic." "I lost everything because I forgot who stood beside me when I had nothing," he replied. Sandra's expression darkened. "You're choosing her?" Daniel shook his head. "I already chose." Too late. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Daniel sank onto the couch, alone, across town. Amina stood in a sunlit room, surrounded by quiet. Her hand rested on her belly as she spoke softly. "You're safe," she whispered. "No matter what." Mrs. Adeyemi entered. "The press wants a final statement." Amina nodded. "Tell them this." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Power didn't change me. It revealed what survived." The statement went viral. Messages flooded in support, admiration, stories from women who saw themselves in her strength. Amina read none of them. She had already closed that chapter. Weeks later, Daniel stood outside a small clinic, holding a folded piece of paper. Permission. He hesitated. Then knocked. The door opened. Amina stood there, not guarded, not distant, just calm. I won't stay long, Daniel said. I just wanted to see. She nodded and stepped aside. He looked at her belly, tears filling his eyes. I'm sorry. Amina didn't answer immediately. Then she said, so am I. Daniel left knowing forgiveness wasn't guaranteed, but accountability had begun. As the door closed, Amina rested a hand on her stomach, breathing steadily. Her story wasn't about revenge, it was about reclamation, and the future she would raise without fear. Because the greatest victory wasn't making him suffer, it was proving she never needed him to survive. But the world has a way of circling back. And the choices Daniel makes next will decide whether this ending is truly the last, or only the beginning. Daniel walked for hours after leaving the building. The cardboard box, heavy in his arms even though it held almost nothing. A framed certificate. A notebook he had never finished. A pen engraved with a title that no longer belonged to him. People brushed past him without a second glance. Once, that would have angered him. Now, it felt deserved. By the time he reached his apartment, the sun had dipped low, painting the city in tired orange light. Sandra was already inside, pacing like a trapped animal. Well, she demanded the moment he stepped in. Daniel set the box down gently. They let me go. Sandra stared at him, waiting for the rest. Let you go? How? Completely, he said. No severance. No position. Nothing. Her face tightened. That woman did this. Daniel shook his head. She didn't have to. Sandra laughed sharply. You're defending her now. I'm telling the truth, Daniel replied quietly. Everything I built was never really mine. Sandra stepped closer, lowering her voice. Then, we take it back. Daniel looked at her, confused. How? We expose her, Sandra said. We tell them she manipulated everything. That she planned this. Daniel felt something inside him snap, not loudly, but finally. No, he said. Sandra froze. What do you mean? No. I won't destroy her to save myself, she scoffed. She destroyed you. Daniel met her eyes. I destroyed myself when I chose ambition over integrity. Sandra stared at him like he had become a stranger. You're weak. Maybe, Daniel said. But I'm done being cruel. She grabbed her bag. Then enjoy your poverty. The door slammed behind her. Silence filled the apartment. Daniel sank onto the floor, back against the couch, staring at nothing. For the first time in years, there was no next move. No strategy, only consequences. Across the city, Amina attended her first full board meeting as sole authority. The room felt different, now less tense, more attentive. They listened when she spoke, not because they feared her, because they respected her. We will restructure, Amina said calmly. But we will not erase people. We will correct systems. One of the executives hesitated, and Mr. O. Amina didn't flinch. He no longer represents this company. The meeting ended efficiently as she stood to leave. A wave of exhaustion hit her. Mrs. Adami noticed immediately. You're carrying too much, she said gently. Amina smiled faintly. I've carried worse. That night, alone in her apartment, Amina sat by the window, city lights flickering below. Her hand rested on her stomach as memories surfaced uninvited. Daniel laughing with her over cheap food. Daniel promising forever. Daniel turning away when forever became inconvenient. Tears slipped down her face, not from weakness, but from release. She whispered, I survived you. Days passed. The media moved on. New scandals replaced old ones. Daniel's name faded from headlines. But inside him, the noise only grew louder. He sold his car, returned suits he could no longer afford, applied for jobs that once would have felt beneath him. Rejections came quickly. No available. Positions overqualified. Your background raises concerns. Each Message chipped away at what little pride remained. One afternoon, he received an unexpected call. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello." "Daniel," a familiar voice said. "It's Mrs. Adeyemi." His chest tightened. Is something wrong?" "No," she replied. "Amina asked me to call." Daniel's heart pounded. "Why?" "She wants to meet you." Silence stretched. When he finally asked. "Tomorrow," Mrs. Adeyemi said. At the clinic, the line went dead. Daniel didn't sleep that night. At the clinic, the air smelled clean and quiet. Daniel sat stiffly in the waiting area, hands clasped tightly together. Then he saw her. Amina moved slowly now, pregnancy visible beneath her dress. But her eyes were steady, grounded. They sat across from each other. "I won't stay long," Daniel said quickly. Amina nodded. "I know." He swallowed. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good," she replied, "because this isn't about that." He looked up, confused. "This is about responsibility," Amina continued. "If you want to be part of this child's life, it won't be because of guilt." Daniel's breath caught. "Then why?" "Because you change," she said. "Not promise. Not beg, change." Tears welled in his eyes. "I don't know if I can." Amina stood slowly. "Then don't pretend." She turned to leave. Daniel's voice cracked. "I'm trying." She paused but didn't turn back. "Trying," she said softly, "is the first step. But it's not the destination." As she walked away, Daniel felt something shift, not hope yet, but direction. And somewhere deep inside, he realized the final test hadn't come yet, because the hardest truth was still waiting to be spoken. And the final choice would decide whether redemption was even possible. What happens next will change all of their lives forever. Daniel stood outside the clinic long after Amina disappeared through the doors. He didn't follow her. For once, he understood that respect sometimes meant staying behind. The wind felt colder than before. He sat on a bench, staring at his hands, realizing how empty they were and how full they needed to become if he ever wanted to deserve more than silence. The next weeks were brutal. Daniel took a job at a small logistics firm far outside the city. No glass offices, no assist, just long hours, physical exhaustion, and supervisors who didn't care who he used to be. For the first time in his life, no one flinched at his name. At night, he returned to a small rented room, cooking simple meals, studying old notes, rebuilding himself, piece by piece. There was no audience for his effort, no applause, only accountability. Meanwhile, Amina prepared for motherhood with the same quiet strength she had used to rebuild her life. Her home filled with soft colors, gentle music, and stillness. The board respected her decisions. The company stabilized, but inside, she wrestled with a question she couldn't silence. What kind of man would her child know? One evening, Mrs. Adeyemi visited, setting 2 cups of tea on the table. "He's changed," she said carefully. Amina didn't look up. "Change isn't measured in weeks." "No," Mrs. Adeyemi agreed. "It's measured in consistency." Amina rested a hand on her stomach, feeling a slow kick. "I won't raise my child around broken promises." "Then don't," Mrs. Adeyemi replied gently. "Raise them around truth." Months later, the baby arrived on a quiet morning. No cameras. No announcements. Just breath, tears, and life. Amina held her child. Overwhelmed by a love that made every past pain feel distant, she whispered, "You will never beg to be chosen." Outside the hospital room, Daniel waited. He hadn't asked to be there. He had only shown up. Hours passed. Then the door opened. Amina stood there, exhausted but steady. "You can come in," she said. Daniel's legs nearly gave out. He stepped inside, slowly, afraid to break the moment. When he saw the baby, tears streamed down his face unchecked. "She's perfect," he whispered. Amina watched him carefully. "This doesn't change anything." "I know," Daniel said, "but I needed to see her." He didn't reach out. That restraint mattered. "You can visit," Amina said finally. On my terms. With consistency. With humility. Daniel nodded. Always, as weeks turned into months, Daniel did exactly what he said he would. He showed up not with excuses, not with demands, but with presence. Amina never praised him, never encouraged him. She simply observed, and slowly, something shifted. Not forgiveness, but peace. One evening, as Amina rocked her child to sleep, she reflected on everything she had endured. The betrayal, the humiliation, the silence, and the strength that followed. She realized something profound. Her victory wasn't Daniel's downfall. It was her independence from his validation. Daniel, standing outside in the hallway, heard soft laughter from inside the room. He smiled sadly. He hadn't earned joy yet, but he had earned the chance to try, and that, he knew, was the hardest gift of all. Because some endings aren't about revenge, they're about accountability. They're about choosing growth over bitterness. They're about becoming someone worthy of standing in the presence of what you once took for granted. And while this chapter closed quietly, the future remained unwritten because life doesn't always give justice the way we expect. Sometimes, it gives something heavier, a second chance. But whether Daniel truly deserves it, is a story only time will finish.